I'm thrilled. Welcome, everyone. Happy almost the end of June. I am super excited to have a dear friend and fellow conspirator and Twitter partner, alumni of our community, Michael Ashcroft. What's up, man?
Hello. Good to see you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so we're gonna have about like a 30-minute Q&A today, and the topic that we're really focusing on is kind of like career pivots to solopreneurship. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna like set the stage a little bit with Michael, and then we've got a small group here, where we can just open it up to Q&A. So maybe I'll start with this question. Tell us about pre-solopreneur Michael, like a day in the life of pre-solopreneur Michael.
Oh, that's a great question. It depends when you pick in my past. But high level is like a 10-year career in energy systems innovation networks, low carbon stuff, basically. And a typical day would have been get up, go to work 9 o'clock, do Excel modeling or make PowerPoints and that kind of thing, talk to people, and then go home at 6 or 7 and repeat for 10 years. A very high level summary of what my day looked like.
And so this was consulting related to climate change. And
yes, exactly. Yeah. So there was small consultancy, massive corporate, and then massive consultancy is the general shape of it. Yeah.
Got it. And so what, take us, I don't know, maybe what year did you leave?
2021.
2021. Okay, so relatively new. So take us to like, 2020. I guess we're in COVID, but let's put that aside. I always ask, like, there's the pebble in the shoe. And so, we have our shared mutual, Andrew Taggart. There's something that is, you're walking and it's, it's annoying, but it's not annoying enough to like stop and diagnose. What was that kind of another way that, Brene Brown calls it a low grade anxiety? What was that? Do you remember what those pebbles were in, 2019, 2020?
Yeah, I mean, so there were some small pebbles throughout my career, which were like, I hate being told what to do. First of all, it's like, you will work on this project. I don't want to. Well, tough. That kind of thing. I always kind of grappled with, and generally not liking the fixed schedule of, I couldn't match my work to my energy levels, basically. If I was tired, I had to work. If I was feeling bad, I had to work. And I knew that in the evening or the weekend, I'd feel better, but I didn't want to shift my work patterns to when I felt like I was able to work. So that was like the background thing. But there was a special thing going on in 2019, 2020, which is that my job before last, I actually burnt out and had like a difficult experience with that. So it kind of brought all this stuff to the fore, such that the small pebbles became enormous like rocks to like Sisyphean carrying every day, and just made everything very real for the last like 2 years before COVID happened. Wow. Before I left. Yeah.
So it's like true burnout, like physically impairing your body.
Totally. Yes. Yeah. So I was in my dream job almost, working for a massive company called National Grid here in the UK. I think it's in the US as well. And my job was to like design innovation projects. It was awesome. And I went through a 6-month period where I was working like 70-hour weeks every week for 6 months. And there's some issues in my personal life. And then one day I just woke up and I was like, oh no, I can't work anymore. And yeah, things didn't really get better from that, honestly. And my story after that is kind of trying to resolve that in a sense. But yeah, it's a tricky one.
Got it. And so what was the, like, people who are stuck in jobs are kind of always, there's the catalyst, right? In your case, kind of the immediate or the salient catalyst of actual physical burnout. But then there's, you became an entrepreneur, a solopreneur. And so you start to put some kind of plan into action, whether it's, what am I going to do next? How do I have the funds to support it? How will my identity feel, untethered to, the National Grid and, these great companies. How did you've always struck me as someone quite methodical. How did you set up the different steps to put this plan into action?
Yeah, good question. I sort of always had a kind of tinkering mindset. I first made money online when I was like 17, writing product reviews for chow.com at the time, that kind of thing. So I'd like always been tinkering. And then 2019, I was lucky to take rite of passage, and got involved in the Twitter scene and saw how that stuff worked, and followed Tiago as well. I was like, oh, there's a thing here on Twitter emerging that it might make sense for me to take part in and do that. But I had no idea how to make money off it. It was just like a nice, I mean, when COVID hit, it was a nice social scene that I could take part in, but just knowing that was a thing I could lean into. But at first I was thinking like, oh, I could like do PKM stuff, I could do Roam stuff, or like I had lots of these little tinkering experiments of what kind of content I could put out there. And then eventually I just got bored of that and did, oh, I am a teacher of this thing called Alexander technique, I'll just shitpost about that. And people loved that. So that kind of like led on to where I am now. Weirdly enough, I did not expect that at the slightest, honestly.
Wow. And so for those of you who are listening who aren't familiar, there are a few acronyms and names thrown around just to put it in context. So Rite of Passage is David Perel's kind of flagship writing course, right? Basically, he teaches you to become an internet writer. Is that the promise?
Pretty much, yeah.
Got it. And then he's in the orbit with Tiago Forte, who does personal knowledge management, which is a little bit of a version or an approach, akin to what we teach at Supercharge Your Productivity. But the interesting thing that I heard in that is, I would immediately have thought, oh, I learned this new skill. But what I heard you say is, I found my tribe, or I found some kind of inspiration that there were other pathways. Is that a fair paraphrasing?
That is fair. So ever since I left university, I knew that the traditional frame of work wasn't a good fit for me, frankly. I didn't like getting up at the right time. I didn't like doing the work. It just didn't fit, even though I did it for 10 years. But no one else really around me felt the same way or had the itch to leave the same way I did. They complained occasionally, but they didn't do anything about it. And then I saw this in like vast universe of people, not just living that dream, but kind of talking about how they did it and being friendly and ambitious and all the good things that you want in a tribe of people to elevate you and say, you can do this. It was just there, and it was fun and it was playful. So I thought, I want to do that. Whatever they're doing, I want to do what they're doing, basically.
Got it. So it's almost more of like, you saw the possibility of a different type of life, different type of career path, and seeing someone actually living it, or seeing a group of people actually living it, kind of set off a light bulb that's like, oh, I could do it, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's like there's always a sense of, oh, they can do it, I couldn't do it. Why not me, basically? And then that question turned from, oh, why not me, to why not me? In a kind of positive, affirmative, like I should do this too sense. It was very much I've been looking to take a leap for a long time, basically. I knew I didn't want to stay in job, but I didn't know what to leap to. And this gave me the confidence that people who are like me or unlike me or just a diverse people can do this thing. So therefore I can do it too, basically. It's such an affirming environment. Wow. A very sincere one, an earnest one as well.
Yeah, that's incredible. And so you tell us a bit, whatever level of detail you're comfortable with, but how did you think about it financially? Because, were you making money? Did you have like a year of savings or 6 months of savings, or how did you situate yourself financially around taking the leap?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I mean, I've had to be quite transparent and share numbers and stuff as well. So I was earning about $100,000 in corporate before I left, in UK money, of course. I had about $30,000 saved up, $35,000 from work. And that wasn't enough in my head. That wasn't enough to jump to and go like, oh, I have X number of months of like living costs, therefore I can jump. It was, I have a proof of concept of my course that I made on AT. I sold 2 mini launches of that basically. And that gave me the confidence of like, oh, I have something I can tinker with and I can turn up. And I only made like $5,000 or something from that course. It was way, way, way less than my savings, than my income, than whatever. But it was like, oh, there's this thing that I could work on that can bring money in, rather than spend 6 months worrying about what I'm going to build that could make my first dollar, basically. So I did that in parallel to the job. Then when that was enough, then I quit. basically.
Got it. And so again, for those listening, AT is Alexander Technique,
yes.
which is the course that Michael teaches. So I love, I want to come back to the path, but tell us a bit how, you meet someone in Hyde Park or at the local pub, and they're like, what is Alexander Technique? You're so passionate about it. When I go to Wikipedia, it's about like posture for singers and voice actors. I'm pretty sure that's not your clientele. How do you describe Alexander Technique to the layperson?
So recently I've been talking about as a mindfulness practice that you do off the cushion, basically. It increases your capacity to notice things and then make new choices in relationship to those things that you noticed. It helps you change habits. It helps you step out of conditioned patterns of behavior. And there's various things we can talk about that relate to that, but that's the core thing that you get out of it is capacity to make new choices in response to noticing things that you hadn't noticed before, basically.
Yeah. Got it. So it's like a walking meditation or an active meditation.
It's mindfulness that you do in activity. So it could be walking, could be washing the dishes, could be working or anything like that. But it's realizing that you habitually cut certain things out of your awareness. And then if you can't notice something, you can't relate to it. You can't make a choice in response to it. So my classic example of it is if you can't notice you have to go to the bathroom, you can't go to the bathroom until you have that awareness first.
Got it.
So Alexander Technique is like putting things back into your awareness such that you can then make choices.
Amazing. And how did you kind of come to discover the Alexander Technique? And I ask that because you're teaching it now. So this kind of, a lot of people listening to this are probably like, well, I don't have an idea, or I don't have my thing, or, how did Alexander Technique become your thing?
Well, I've always been interested in mindfulness and that kind of inner work almost. But when I came across it, so context, I had very bad knees. They injuries and they dislocate easily and that kind of thing. And I thought somewhere in my memory there was, oh, Alexander Technique, that's good for posture and bodies and whatever. Maybe I can use it to protect my knees. And there happened to be a school nearby and I went along and it was not what I expected it to be, but it was way more and way better. That was in 2014. And I got so into it that I thought I will just do the teacher training course. They happened to have just started in my evenings and weekends around my job for 3 years, basically. And I had no intention of ever teaching it. It's done through touch in person. I never believed it could be done online asynchronously, but it was just a thing I was enjoying digging into that wasn't corporate energy systems stuff, basically.
Wow. So this is, I guess, playing it back, kind of the classic example of your, a mix of your personal rabbit hole of something that you're, personally fascinated by, and a pain point, like, I guess in this case, like literally in your knees, a pain point that you had. And how did you, to use very complex, fancy entrepreneur jargon, like, how did you validate that there was demand for the skill that you had? This is all online through Twitter, effectively, right? Mostly.
Yeah, it was all through Twitter. And so I just started making these threads, basically. I got bored talking about Rome for research, so I thought I'd make threads about awareness instead. And people were engaging and asking questions and really interested. So I guess the part of Twitter that I'm in is full of people who are interested in psychotechnologies, like how their awareness works. I didn't realize this at the time, but I'd accessed a really useful watering hole, I guess. Yeah. And when I had a week off work, but during COVID, I think beginning of COVID, and I couldn't go anywhere. So I thought, hey, everyone, I want to do some Zoom calls. Like sign up if you want to have like a half-hour intro call where I try and discuss this thing in like a more high resolution way than just Twitter threads. And about 20 or 30 people signed up. So I had like a week of like intense Zoom calls about AT. And then I kind of got bored doing it and had a donation model so they could give me $10, whatever, afterwards if they wanted to. And that was lovely. My first dollars for AT work on the internet. But towards the end of it, I was like I had more demand for these calls, but I didn't want to do it. I was kind of bored. I had a job. Then I realized that kind of converged. If I just said the right things in the right way at the right time in the right sequence, people had an experience and got it. So I thought, oh, hang on, what if I just recorded myself saying these things in this order and then put that out there, and they can start there and then go on. But that's what became the course I made. It was just a recorded version of a phone call I did, basically, for free.
Wow. That's, and how much were you charging the first time you sold your course? How much were you charging for it?
So I had just seen Nat Eliason done his own course, and he pre-sold $50 for the course, and I did the same thing. I just copied his playbook, basically. I'm pre-selling. I haven't made this thing, but if 50 people give me $50, I will make something for them.
Got it.
And that's how it started.
A DIY Kickstarter.
Basically, yeah.
Exactly. Got it. And for those listening, give us like audience, like at that point, you have like 10,000 Twitter followers, hundreds of Twitter.
Like 4,000, 3,000 or 4,000 Twitter followers at that point. Yeah.
Got it. Which I always say, like under 10 is when you're active on Twitter, but you're not like strategically trying to grow. It's like you engage with the platform, you use it, like someone would use Instagram, like for fun.
Yeah.
And then like, it feels like you kind of like organically grow to like a couple thousand without doing all the hacks and, the Twitter MBA threads.
Yes.
Okay. So you have that and you get the confidence. And was there ever a moment like where you said, my backup plan is X? Like if this Alexander Technique course on the internet, or this internet entrepreneurship, however you framed it, did you ever tell yourself like, if I don't hit X, or if I have to, if I run out of savings and Y, or if my savings go to 5,000, I will, admit that this didn't work, or I will pivot to something different. Did you have that kind of framing or internal safety net?
I had two versions of that. I didn't have a number where if I haven't made enough by this point, or if my savings go to this point, I'll give up. But I kind of had a sense that, this might not work out. So on the one hand, I knew, I was working at KPMG and it was not a good fit for me, really bad fit for me. So I knew that as long as I leave there and get a different job, I'd do that anyway. So it's not a huge failure to go and get a different job. So whatever, that's fine. But the real helpful thing, if you're building a self-paced course, even not succeeding is not failure. Because if let's say I had a target of making $100,000 a year, right, whatever, and I only manage to make $30,000 a year, I can still have that running in the background and go and get a job, right? But that changes the kind of job I can get because I have some income from somewhere else. So I use that as a really helpful rationalization. Said like, look, even failure is success, and even partial failure, partial success is good enough. Basically, I don't need to hit the biggest milestone for this to be worth it.
That gave me goosebumps, man. As someone who's thought a lot about career pivots, like that's an interesting. I had the first part personally when I walked away, and I was like, well, I could always go back and I couldn't get my old job back, but I could get some version, 80% version of that job, maybe like a crappier boss and like a slightly more hours for less money, but like it was still like objectively a very good job. And so that was my first framing, but I never thought that, well, if I only, and I didn't start making money for a long time. And so it's a little slightly different circumstance, but never thought like, oh, well, if I could make 15 grand, then that's 15 grand less that this job has to pay me. And that might open up a whole new set of jobs or a whole new ways of working. So it's a really lovely reframe that I appreciate you sharing, because I had not thought about that.
Cool. No, thank you. It really helped me like get through this, honestly, because I realized that in the professional frame that I was in, there's a kind of a ceiling of responsibility and work at around the $100K mark. So if you want to go above that, you're associate director, working all the hours, your job is your life kind of thing. And I had hit the ceiling in that job and on before, and it was hard to progress, basically. And I didn't want to have the kind of lifestyle that would have required more money, or even to go back to that kind of lifestyle. So if I could have a $20, $30K on the side and then go work for an NGO and have the same lifestyle, awesome,
Yeah, amazing. And so you have this course, it's self-paced. Yes. And you've been running it for two-ish years?
About 18 months now, actually. 18 months. Yeah.
Got it. I saw you just crossed like a revenue milestone. I can't recall.
So I've just passed 900 students and $180,000.
$180,000 over 18. So it's about $10,000 a month.
Pretty much, yeah.
Got it. So you have, rough math surpassed your former income.
The business has. I use the profit first system, which I recommend to everyone. And I pay myself a bit, not the same top line figure, but yes, in terms of money coming in, I've surpassed it. Yeah, I've surpassed it.
And your operating expenses are presumably quite low.
Very low, yeah.
Other than your time and a few platform expenses.
So it's something like 85% profit at this point, I think. Yeah.
Got it. And is it is it just like a cash machine where you just show up and every month 10 grand shows up in your bank account?
No, not at all, unfortunately. I know.
Why'd you have to ruin it? We were going so well in that direction.
I think I've been very fortunate that it has sold much more than I expected it to. Yeah. But this is a good thing and a bad thing. I have to keep showing up and talking about it and writing stuff about it and getting it to new people. It's not a thing that, if I don't tweet about it, and I've experienced this in the last few weeks, actually, if I don't tweet, nothing happens. No sales, basically. It goes way down, like many 0 days in a row. Then I start writing, tweeting, and whatever, and like money starts pouring in again. So what I've learned is that if new people are in my orbit, I guess, they're kind of looking at me on Twitter and that kind of thing for long enough, a good proportion will buy the course eventually. If I don't, they won't. So, this is why I've been struggling recently with not feeling particularly inspired to do anything. If you're in that state for too long, you don't produce anything, your lifestyle goes away. The magic beans have run out or something,
Fascinating. And so that, it's a question, it's a topic that is not often discussed when people talk about these online businesses. Is that it doesn't, like, we have cohort-based course, so we're not always, we are always marketing, but our marketing is much more episodic. And you have an evergreen course, which, if you, according to the internet, you would be, throw your feet up with a Corona in Bali, or I guess it would be a Bintang. I forget what beer they drink in Bali. And then the money would just come in 10K a month. But what we've trying to figure out here, and we haven't cracked the code, is I call it, what's your sustainable marketing engine, right? Your SME, right? And that, for you, it's tweeting regularly, which I leave it to you and others, whether that's sustainable or not. For us, it's me writing the newsletter, it's events, it's a little bit of search engine optimization. But it's still like, it's still a small, there's nothing passive about it. Like,
totally.
There's nothing, like, for everyone listening, there's no such thing as passive income. The only passive income is like, you give your money to a fund manager and then you just they produce returns for you, but you're paying them, a huge management fee. So, you basically transferred your passivity to their activeness through the form of a recurring fee. So that's it. So, let's talk about, you've called it the rut, right? The rut, yes. Trademark emoji. Because a lot of people might be listening to this and hearing your story and like, wow, like, he made it, right? Like, he replicated his, top line revenue on Michael's own terms. You travel a lot or a decent amount, it seems, nomading and all that fun stuff. But you're in the rut, or you're dancing around the rim of the rut.
Yes.
Tell us about the rut?
It's an interesting one. After I left my job, I was like elated for a few months. I was like, this is great. Yeah, loads of work. And then as time went on, so around September, October last year, I just got more and more kind of bleh and kind of lonely, actually. Like, going from working in teams and having people to bounce ideas off of and having a shared purpose, all that kind of stuff just went away completely. And I was just at home with my laptop, basically. And it got quite difficult. And in my mind, I started nomading on Friday. So not Friday, February, Jesus. But in February, so a few months ago, my partner took a sabbatical, 12 months off work as well. So we're traveling together and we were kind of gearing up to like, oh, we're going on the sabbatical soon. We should be thinking about that. And all of that kind of got in the way of doing new stuff. And in the context of money still coming in, if you tweet enough in the background, that's not a strong motivator to really commit to big new projects that will excite you and motivate you. It moves you towards tweeting. And tweeting is the kind of thing that you know, it's fine, but it also keeps you on Twitter and scrolling, and that kind of like way of being is not particularly wholesome, I think, of just like always being on Twitter. So as time has gone on, it's just been lack of fire, basically, lack of a spark of why am I doing this? What am I aiming towards? What's my purpose here? Is this it? What do I really, I mean, all these big 10K questions, basically.
Yeah.
And then the traveling started, and it was just like too much travel, basically. So we're now going to be in one place for longer to allow for actual space to think.
Got it. I said we'd stop at 30. Do you have like 10 more minutes? This is like, I'm having so much fun with this. And if you have any questions for Michael, drop them in the chat, but we'll kind of like conclude on this 10K questions theme. And for those of you who aren't familiar, 10K questions are these kind of big questions of like, am I heading in the right direction? And am I personally in alignment? Right. And you could see where this is actually a very common story. I've felt this as well in my own experience, that, you know, we call it the when then trap, where you're like, oh, well, if I just leave corporate and generate this amount of income to cover my bills, then like, boom, I will be happy, or I will be, you know, content. But then the grass is always greener. You know, you're lonely, you're at your laptop. I mean, for those of you who are entertaining the digital nomad life, the question that I would ask you to ponder is, are you okay with being with your laptop by yourself for months at a time? Right. And even fabricating your own social interaction outside of it is not the same thing, because it's your work, you know, you don't have coworkers. So that's kind of the when then trap. So once I get this, then I'll be happy. But then there's another one, which is a little bit more nuanced, which, you know, you can borrow from different Eastern traditions, but like the hungry ghost, right? It's like the best way that I would describe it is, my resting place is one of incompleteness, or one of lack. And so I'm not complete if I just sit still. Thus, to find completeness, I must strive, or I must be active, whether it's building companies, learning how to surf, you know, tweeting and so on. And so thank you for being so open and sharing everything so transparently. It's so helpful for everyone. What are the 10K questions swirling around your head right now?
The main one is kind of like, what am I on earth to do, actually? What is the unique thing that I can do that no one else can do? Because I realized this in the corporate frame is, I may have been doing good work. I may have been designing good projects and advising clients well and whatever, but if I'd left, someone else would do that. I wasn't particularly irreplaceable in anything I did, no matter how well I did. And now I'm like, well, there is no one else doing what I'm doing. And that's much more exciting to me. But what else like that is there? So it's becoming more ambitious, and that's kind of de-ratifying me slightly. Is like, no, really, I guess actually a big frame is that in the past, I always thought I'd leave my job. Whereas now I have a sense I'll do whatever this is, some form of this, until I retire, whenever that might be, and I stop working. So it gives me a much longer time frame to actually lean into this and build something. So if I have 40 years, what do I want to build?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That raises so many philosophical questions. One that I might start with is, are we put on earth to do the thing that we're uniquely skilled at doing? Because let's use an example. Let's say you're the universe's best poker player. But playing poker to you is, you know, however you want to frame it, you know, zero utility to society, not aligned with your values, whatever. It's in discord with some element of your being. But for some reason, you were born the universe's best poker player. And so that is your unique gift, much higher relative to anything else. Like, I'm super curious, like, what dictates that our raison d'être, right? Our reason for being is the thing that we're uniquely skilled at?
That's a good question. I think if I were in that poker player's position, if it were, I'm very good at this, but it doesn't bring me joy, doesn't align my values, I would not feel compelled to do it just because I was very good at it. I'm not sure if that sidesteps your question, but for me, there would be alignment in, I feel uniquely suitable and I want to at the same time.
It.
Right? That's those two things go together, not like, well, I really hate this thing I'm excellent at, so I'll grind on it. That's not how I would approach this.
Got it. And how are you, what are your kind of practices for kind of exploring the rut? Is it coaching? Is it journaling? Is it experimenting? Is it, Alexander techniquing?
There's a lot of introspection going on right now. So I am journaling a lot. I am talking to people who can ask good questions. Coaching or not, it's the same kind of idea of just having people kind of throw oblique things at me and say, well, it sounds like this. And also just trying to take myself a bit less seriously, because I'm getting a bit caught up in that. I had an email exchange with Andrew Taggart, our mutual friend, a while ago, and he said to me, all these good things about you, Michael, and you take yourself very seriously. Like, oh no. I really hope that's not the case, but I suspect you might be right. So kind of like rediscovering a sense of faithfulness that I think can help me move towards something that will unlock more in me, that will align with that thing that's discussing before. So the thing that I'm very good at and also love, enjoy, find meaning in at the same time.
Wow.
But I don't know. This is the thing. I've spent a decade doing something else. This is 18 months of this is a new way of being for me. I have no idea what I'm doing, frankly, like apart from the last 18 months. So there's no reason I should be good at this. I'm trying to let myself off the hook of needing to be good, because why should I be?
Yeah. And from I've been doing this for multiples of the time you've done, right? I'm approaching 7.5 years of being in internet. I went to a conference recently. I'm like, wow, I'm like one of the people that's been doing this the longest. And I wake up every day. I'm like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. There's so much, it's like, I haven't cracked the challenge that you have with like, how do you get more people to find your stuff, right? Like that's other than like tweeting and writing a newsletter, right? It is hard stuff. And it's, we could talk, it's only getting harder now with like, as people move offline. But I want to wrap with a last question from Garrett. And Garrett had asked a two-part question. The first question was, what were your first steps? And then the second part of the question is, what does your work look like now?
Can I ask for context about first steps? Where?
Garrett's mic is not working, but I would presume, well, actually, Garrett, if you can clarify the first steps question in the chat, and then maybe you could answer, like, what does your work look like? What does your day look like? Your average day in the last month?
The last month, it's been actually improving. So I've been trying to capture various ideas in the Alexander technique world that I can elucidate better, basically. So my course right now is based around awareness, noticing more things. And I want to upgrade the course with a big module on a thing I'm calling aliveness. So how can you be more alive? How can you, I won't go into details right now, it'll come. But basically, there's so much that's kind of in my mind somewhere, but not coherent yet, that whenever I spot something that's like, oh, that's a good idea, that's a good way of framing it, that's an interesting tactic or technique, I'll try and capture that and then write about it, normally on Twitter or in a little notebook section on my website or stuff like this, basically, to try and start to cohere all of these things that will eventually become a new module. So it doesn't look like me sitting at a desk for 8 hours grinding on writing stuff. It just looks like me kind of going away, coming back, going away, coming back, and then hanging out on Twitter at the same time. And at the same time, there's been an enormous amount of dealing with sales tax, which is the worst thing in the world ever. Oh my God. And it's now resolved. That's been like weeks of work and pain.
The $10, because that because we are live courses, we are considered a service. So we're less, we're exempt from a lot of the taxation of a digital
I am
product.
not.
Yeah. Oh
Yes.
man. Isn't there
I have to pay. There is
like
now, I
every
found
country,
a company. Yeah, I found a company who will pay it all for me. So they'll collect all the information and then just pay all my taxes for a 1% service fee. And I'm like, please take my money. I will happily give you my money.
Wow.
Because in the past it was, like finding every single transaction, the customer's like location, and then applying the sales tax based on the sales tax in their location, and then paying it to that country manually myself.
Oh
like,
my God.
That's absolutely insane.
Oh, wow. That's like $10 work like you've never seen.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. So Garrett said, you can probably see it in the chat, first steps away from consulting into a solopreneur. You covered in having a problem, turning around and reaching others, but are there any other detail in challenges there?
I mean, one thing that I should talk about is that when I knew I was going to leave my job, or I was working on this thing on the side that had way more passion for me than the job, it was very difficult to still be in the job. That transition period of, I'm enjoying writing and newsletters in the evenings and being on Twitter and stuff, but still doing my projects and delivering for clients, that sucked. And in many ways it was useful for me that COVID happened when it did, because I could hide at home and avoid the tap on the shoulder, like, Michael, we have a very exciting project for you to work on, like, oh God, go away thing. And I could just be on Twitter more easily. But I honestly don't think, if I had been working full speed at KPMG and had to be in the office the whole time and unable to just kind of quickly check Twitter between things, it would have either not happened or happened much more slowly. So I think for me, it only worked because I was able to say about my job, I'm not pushing this one. I'm not going on the promotion track. I don't care about a good review. I'm like leaving that on like standby and doing this thing. But I could not have done both, I think.
Got it. I think that's actually something I've noticed with a lot of creators as they're leaving their job. And what I would say, from the limited interactions that we've had, I always tell people, your 80%, like if you try 80% at KPMG, is probably most people's 100%. And I could just tell by the way you show up in the world. Like, you half-assing it is like still better than, you're still in the top 10% of performers. And I would imagine that our shared communities, this type of person who's interested in this conversation is probably like that too. If anything, the hardest part is to be okay with showing up half-assed. Right? Because as we take so much pride in the identities of, I'm so reliable, I go the extra mile, I'm trustworthy, I'm smart, right? And if you're half-assing it, you're basically saying to people like, I'm average smart. And it's a very hard thing for a lot of people in this room to just walk around and be like, I'm going to live my life today like I'm average smart, like, because you're gravitating to this community because you feel maybe smart or talent, whatever word you want to use, to kind of translate that energy and activity and knowledge, but yes, giving yourself permission to be like, no, I'm not going to try so hard, but the downstream identity consequences that come with being perceived, even in your own mind, in your own eyes, as someone that is not trying to be the best version of themselves, I found to be very difficult.
Absolutely. And it's difficult because you almost need to do a lot of 10K style introspection at this point, because if you basically, you're in a job and you want to do a solopreneur over here, right? But you're still also trying to get promoted. And these two destinations are irreconcilably different. These are in conflict. But if you don't actively let go of the partner track that you're on, you're going to be like the whole time. And it'll suck. So either commit to this one or commit to this one, but collapse the wave function. Don't let it be. Pick one.
Totally. Amazing. Well, thank you so much wisdom. We're gonna share this talk on YouTube, and so we'll get some good eyeballs on this, because this is too good of a conversation to for people to not see. So anywhere they should go to, we've dropped them in the links, but to learn more about the course, about you and this prolific Twitter account of yours.
Sure. So on Twitter, I am at m_Ashcroft. The Alexander Technique stuff is at expandingawareness.org, and I'm personally at michaelashcroft.org. You can find all the stuff in those places.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Thank you,
Thank you, Kay.
Marianne. Thank you, everyone, Chris, Garrett, and others for participating today. And we will see you soon.
Thanks all.
Bye.